I never imagined I'd become the unwilling star of one of those viral neighborhood drama videos people pass around online, but somehow, that's exactly where life has taken me. My name is Michael, and for the past 3 years, I've lived in Sycamore Hills with my 10-year-old son, Ethan, who is autistic. We chose this neighborhood because the local schools offer excellent special education services, and from the outside, the community looked quiet and welcoming. I had no idea that our sense of peace would be destroyed by one person, Patricia Wilkins. Though her name is Patricia, everyone in Sycamore Hills refers to her as a Karen behind her back. She's the president of our homeowners association and treats her position like a personal kingdom. From the moment we moved in, Patricia made sure I understood that she ruled this neighborhood with absolute authority. Her signature silver bob would appear at my front door at least once a month with a new complaint. "Your grass is a 1/4 inch too high," she'd scold, eyes narrowed. "Your mailbox is painted eggshell, but the bylaws clearly specify off-white." I always kept my cool, nodding politely before fixing whatever she pointed out. Starting a fight with the HOA wasn't worth the stress, especially when I had to prioritize Ethan and his needs. For anyone unfamiliar, many children on the autism spectrum have sensory processing differences. For Ethan, spending time outside is essential. It helps him regulate his emotions and stay grounded. He especially adores playing with his collection of toy dinosaurs in our fenced backyard. I've set up a small area with a sandbox where he can pretend to dig for fossils and build his own prehistoric worlds. It's his safe place, and seeing him absorbed in his imaginative play fills me with pride. Last month, I decided to take things a step further and build a small playhouse in one corner of our yard. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a simple, wooden structure painted blue, Ethan's favorite color. I envisioned a space where he could display his dinosaur collection and retreat when he needed quiet time outdoors. Before I built it, I checked the HOA bylaws carefully. The rules clearly stated that any play structure under 100 square feet didn't require board approval. The playhouse measured only 60 square feet, so I assumed everything was fine. Ethan helped me paint it, smiling ear to ear as we worked together the entire weekend. That Monday morning, while I was working from home, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Patricia standing stiffly on my porch, her lips pressed into a thin, judgmental line, and her clipboard hugged tightly to her chest, as if she were bracing for battle. "Mr. Anderson," she snapped, "what is that blue monstrosity in your backyard?" Her tone dripped with disgust. I calmly explained that it was a playhouse for Ethan, and that it was fully compliant with the HOA guidelines. Patricia's face tightened as she flipped frantically through the pages on her clipboard. "It's an unauthorized structure and an absolute eyesore. It must be removed immediately," she declared sharply. I took a steadying breath. Patricia reviewed the bylaws. Section 12, paragraph 3 states that play structures under 100 square feet don't need approval. This one is 60. Here's the printout. I held out a copy, which she snatched from my hand. Her eyes darted over the text before she abruptly straightened. "This is outdated," she said dismissively. "We voted to change this at the last meeting, but when I asked to see the updated bylaws, she claimed they were still being finalized, yet I was expected to comply anyway." I held firm. "Until I receive the official updated documents, I'm following what's written. The playhouse stays." Patricia's expression twisted with fury. "You'll be receiving a violation notice and fines," she snapped before storming away. Sure enough, the next day, a violation notice appeared in my mailbox, informing me that I owed $500 for maintaining an unauthorized structure. I decided to address the issue directly at the next HOA meeting. When I arrived at the community center, about 20 neighbors were already gathered. Patricia sat at the front with 2 board members flanking her, looking every bit the queen of the room in her cardigan and pearl necklace. When the meeting opened for resident concerns, I raised my hand. "I'd like to address the violation notice regarding my son's playhouse," I said respectfully. I reviewed the bylaws thoroughly. Play structures under 100 square feet don't require approval. His playhouse is 60. I'm requesting that the violation be removed. A few neighbors nodded, and I noticed Patricia's knuckles turning white as she tightened her grip on her pen. The board has discretion over aesthetic matters, Patricia replied with a patronizing smile, and we've determined that your bright blue structure disrupts the visual harmony of the neighborhood. I stared at her in disbelief. Visual harmony? It's in my fenced backyard and barely visible from the street. And my son, who has autism, helped design and paint it. It's important for him. Patricia leaned forward, eyes narrowing. We all make sacrifices to live in a beautiful community. Your son's special needs are not the HOA's concern, she said coldly. The room went silent. I felt the air shift as neighbors exchanged uncomfortable looks. Did she really just say that? Even the board members beside her looked stunned. One of my neighbors, Maria Garcia, stood and spoke. I can see the playhouse from my yard, and I think it's charming, she said kindly. I don't understand the issue. More neighbors chimed in with support. Patricia slammed her gavel repeatedly, face turning red. Order. This matter is closed. Next item. She barked. After the meeting, several neighbors approached me to offer sympathy. She's getting worse, one whispered. Last month, she tried to fine the Johnsons for installing a wheelchair ramp because it didn't match the aesthetic. Hearing that sparked an idea. That night, I researched disability accommodation laws. Under the Fair Housing Act, housing providers including HOAs must make reasonable accommodations for individuals with disabilities, including property modifications. The playhouse, which served as a therapeutic sensory space for Ethan, clearly qualified. The next day, I sent a certified letter to the HOA board, explaining everything and citing the law. I requested that the violation be rescinded as a reasonable accommodation for Ethan's disability. I even included a note from Ethan's therapist outlining how important the space was. I genuinely thought that would settle things. After all, who would risk a discrimination lawsuit? But I underestimated Patricia. Not only did she refuse to rescind the violation, but she also doubled down, raising the fine to $1,000 for what she called continued noncompliance. She sent a formal letter declaring that I had exactly 72 hours to remove the playhouse, or the HOA would send contractors to dismantle it at my expense. I was furious, but I forced myself to stay level-headed. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in housing discrimination, and after reviewing everything, she confirmed that I had a strong case. She advised me to hold my ground and to document every interaction. I followed her instructions carefully. Everything finally exploded on a Saturday afternoon. Ethan and I were enjoying some quiet time in the backyard. He was completely absorbed in his dinosaur kingdom, arranging his T-Rexes and Triceratops into elaborate social circles only he could understand. I sat nearby, enjoying the warm spring afternoon while answering a few work emails. Suddenly, the gate swung open with a loud clang. Patricia marched in, flanked by two men carrying tools. These gentlemen are here to remove the unauthorized structure, she announced triumphantly. Ethan looked up, and I immediately saw the panic cross his face as he took in the unfamiliar people and the harsh tone in Patricia's voice. Patricia, you can't do this, I said firmly as I rose to my feet. I've already informed the board that this playhouse is a reasonable accommodation for my son's disability. You're violating federal housing law. The two workers exchanged uneasy glances, clearly unaware of the situation they were walking into. This has nothing to do with disability, Patricia scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. It's about following the rules like everyone else. Her voice was rising, and I could see Ethan beginning to cover his ears, his way of coping with overwhelming noise. Please lower your voice, I said calmly. You're upsetting my son. Instead of listening, Patricia took several steps farther into our yard, jabbing her finger toward me. Don't tell me what to do in my neighborhood, she practically yelled. Ethan began rocking back and forth, trying desperately to self-soothe. I moved in front of him, blocking her from getting closer. You need to leave. Now, I said sternly. This is private property, and you are trespassing. Patricia's face twisted with rage. How dare you speak to me like that? I am the president of this HOA, she shrieked. Ethan let out a distressed cry. Then everything seemed to happen in slow motion. Overwhelmed and frightened, Ethan stumbled backward and knocked over one of his dinosaur displays as he tried to retreat into his playhouse. Patricia, somehow interpreting this as disrespect, lunged forward and grabbed his arm. "Don't you walk away when adults are speaking," she screamed, gripping his wrist tightly. Ethan's face contorted in terror as he began to scream. Instinct took over. I rushed forward, immediately pulling her hand off my son. "Do not touch my child," I said, my voice low and dangerous as I stepped between them. The two workers quickly backed away, clearly wanting nothing more to do with the confrontation. But Patricia, oblivious to how far she had crossed the line, lifted her hand as if to shove past me toward Ethan, who was now curled up inside his playhouse, sobbing. "That structure is coming down today," she insisted, wild-eyed. What she didn't know was that Maria, my next-door neighbor, had heard the shouting and had been recording the entire incident from her yard. "Patricia Wilkins, if you take one more step toward that child, I'm calling 911, Maria called out loudly. Patricia spun around and finally realized she had an audience. Several neighbors were gathered along the fence line, phones raised, recording everything. Her demeanor changed instantly, her voice softening unnaturally. "I was only trying to explain the rules to the boy," she said with a nervous, forced laugh. "He looked confused. We all saw you grab him," Mr. Thompson said sternly from his yard. "And we heard you yelling at him." Patricia's face drained of color as she registered how many witnesses there were. She turned toward me again, pointing angrily. "This isn't over," she hissed quietly. "You'll regret this." As she turned to leave, she deliberately kicked over Ethan's carefully arranged dinosaur scene, sending the toys scattering across the ground. That was the final breaking point. "Maria, please call 911, I said calmly. "I want to report an assault on my son and destruction of property." Patricia froze. "Assault? Don't be ridiculous," she sputtered, her voice cracking. "It was just a misunderstanding." When the police arrived about 15 minutes later, they gathered statements from multiple witnesses who had seen her grab Ethan. They reviewed Maria's video, which clearly showed Patricia gripping his arm hard enough to leave bright red marks. The officers explained to her that any unwanted physical contact is considered assault, and when it involves a minor, it's treated with even greater seriousness. I will never forget Patricia's expression as one of the officers placed handcuffs on her wrists and read her rights. Her mouth hung open, opening and closing soundlessly like a stunned fish. The neighbors watched in tense silence as she was escorted to the police car, her perfectly styled hair now rumpled, her pearl necklace twisted crookedly. The following day, the remaining HOA board members called an emergency meeting. They declared the president's position vacant and suspended Patricia from the board pending the outcome of her legal case. They immediately rescinded all fines related to Ethan's playhouse and issued a formal written apology. They also announced that they would begin a full review of all HOA's bylaws to ensure compliance with fair housing laws. As for Patricia, she was officially charged with simple assault against a minor, an offense carrying a possible penalty of up to 1 year in jail and a $2,500 fine. Her employer, a well-known real estate agency that prided itself on community involvement, placed her on unpaid leave after the video went viral. At her arraignment, the judge set her bail at $5,000 and issued a restraining order preventing her from coming within 100 feet of our home or Ethan. When the local news picked up the story complete with Maria's footage, Patricia's face spread across TV screens all over the city. As she left the courthouse, reporters swarmed her, bombarding her with questions. Her attorney urged her to stay silent, but Patricia, who never seemed capable of stepping out of the spotlight, turned to the cameras with tears streaming down her cheeks. "This is all a misunderstanding," she insisted desperately. "I was just enforcing the rules. That's my job." But the damage was already done. By that evening, #HOA Karen was trending across social media, with thousands of people sharing their own horror stories of HOA power trips. The most satisfying moment came 2 weeks later, when I received a certified letter from the HOA. The board had unanimously voted to amend the bylaws to explicitly protect reasonable accommodations for residents with disabilities. At the bottom of the letter was a final note. Patricia had been permanently removed from the board for conduct unbecoming of a board member. According to neighbors who attended the meeting, When the decision was read aloud, Patricia shot to her feet, face twisted with outrage, and screamed, "You can't do this to me. I built this community." Before storming out, she slammed the door so hard that the HOA's framed mission statement fell off the wall and shattered on the floor.